I'm not going to sugarcoat this. The Vikings are in some trouble. Jesus save the purple. Alright, to kick off this video, it has been a long time since the last posted. The last time posted, I think it was when I did at least the last whole video I did was when the NFL released the full top 100 players list of 2023. And Justin Jefferson was ranked number 2. Patrick Mahomes was number 1, obviously, but also they had some really bad rankings, like putting Aaron Donald at number 11 while putting TJ Watt at number 27. They put Trevor Lawrence at number 96, Dalvin Cook at number 94, I think, and even like Eric Kendricks at 91. Really, there's a lot of bad rankings. And since then, I've not posted at all because, well, I just haven't wanted to, so I've just kind of been lazy. And also, I've started PSCO in community college, so that's also an excuse. But I want to continue posting because I still really enjoy making this podcast and because I like to talk about the Vikings a lot, obviously. Now, obviously the Vikings are in some trouble with how the management is going right now. Obviously, we had some troubles with quarterback. We've had our offense just been dormant the last like 3.5 games. Ever since the second half of the Saints game, it's just been dormant. And our QB situation is looking kind of fuzzy right now. So, I want to get over a few things. Quick recap of the season. Josh Dobbs and his Linsanity pass or not run. Brian Flores, he deserves Coach of the Year. KLC and Wes Phillips need to get their stuff together because the offensive play calling, the offensive game plans have just been terrible the last few games. We need to develop Jaren Hall as our next quarterback because he was decent against the Falcons until he got his concussion, and our other two backup quarterbacks are just not that good right now. Also, Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and Daniel Hunter need to stay. And then the last thing is some rising stars I want to talk about because we got a lot of guys, mostly just on the defense side of the ball, that could be rocks to build our team around. Rocks to build a team around. That didn't make any sense. Anyways, quick recap of the season. Obviously, the Vikings started almost as bad as we can. We start 0-3 to start the season. We lost to the Buccaneers 20-17 week 1 because our defense just could not stop Baker Mayfield in the second half, and our offense just had nowhere to go. Week 2, we play against the Eagles, where a lot of the Fairweather Vikings fans had no confidence in the Vikings whatsoever. We thought we were going to lose 40-3 because, of course, we are. And then we were down 13-7 at the half, and then after like 4 minutes into the second half, we were down 27-7, but still came back and almost won 34-27. Justin Jefferson definitely did need a fumble right at the end of the first half, but we still made it really close, much closer than even last year, which just showed how much our team has improved from last year. Then the third game against the Chargers, where we lost 20-24 because Hawkinson cannot hold on to the ball. First of all, he had the fumble on the opening drive where Derwin James just stripped it from him, and then at the last offensive play of the game, he just dropped what could have been a game-winning touchdown in the end zone, and they got tipped up, and I think it was Kenneth Murray who caught the ball, who intercepted the ball, and the Chargers won the game. After that, we had finally got a win against the Panthers, 21-13, even though Kirk Cousins didn't even play that good. For some reason, the only two games until the 5-game win streak when Kirk Cousins played well in were the two games the only two games that Kirk Cousins didn't play well in were against the Panthers, the first win, and then against the Bears. After that, other than those two games, he's played like an MVP this year, and that is not an exaggeration. He's played like an MVP. Our defense against the Panthers just gotten much better. We had the 3 sacks by Harrison Smith, including one that was the strip sack that DJ Wanham brought back for a touchdown to finally give the Vikings a lead, 14-13. Then we'd eventually go on to win 21-13. I think it was because Justin Jefferson caught the touchdown that would give us the 8-point lead when he just kind of mossed whoever it was the defender. I think it was Dante Jackson when the I can't remember who it was, but I know the Panthers had some guys on defense out that game, but we still did not beat them by that much, which was kind of disappointing. But then the 5th game of the season against the Chiefs, first of all, the refing, the last, like the when the Vikings had the 4th and 10, the refs just decided to not call like 3 different flags. First of all, I'm pretty sure, I think it was like some defensive player could have gotten hands to the face or roughing the pass on Kirk Cousins. 2, Travarius Ward no, L'Jarius Sneed held Jordan Addison all the way into the end zone from like the 5 yard line in, and wasn't called for defensive pass interference when the ball like popped off his head. He was not even turned to the ball, and he was trying to push Jordan Addison away, which should be defensive pass interference. And then after that, the refs threw the flag. He took his helmet off, which again is not is. I was going to say against the rules, but this isn't sixth grade flag football. Taking off your helmet on the field of play, even though it was technically after the play was over, is still a penalty because that's unsportsmanlike conduct. It's supposed to be for player safety, but that obviously isn't a player safety issue. He was perfectly safe taking it off. But then the ref goes up. But then as he's walking over to the ref to protest the call, one of the refs just goes, "Put your helmet back on," because they did not want to flag the Chiefs in a moment where the Vikings could have had a chance to tie the game up, because the refs need to give the Chiefs every call possible, except for the last game against the Bills when Kadarius Toney was offsides, and legend has it Patrick Mahomes is still complaining about that call when it was obviously the right call. But after that 1-4 start, the Vikings decided to go on the 5-game win streak after the Vikings did not have Justin Jefferson. The first game against the Bears, the Vikings won 19-13. Even when one of the Bears, I think it was the Bears' last offensive drive, when Tyson Bagent was looking like he was about to just march down and win the game for the Vikings, because the Vikings were rushing 3 and 4 guys, not getting any pressure, and just giving super cushiony coverage. And Tyson Bagent was able to pick us apart until he finally threw the interception to Byron Murphy. But in that game, Josh Mateta also got the strip sack on. I don't remember if it was I think it was Josh Metellus or Jordan Hicks who got the strip sack on Tyson Bagent, and I think it was Josh Metellus who actually recovered it and ran it for a touchdown. That was the first 2 games of the season that we won, which included a strip sack, which we returned for a touchdown. 1 from Harrison Smith to DJ Wanham, and 2, I think it was Jordan Hicks to Josh Metellus, who Jordan Hicks has been a rock on our defense up until he got injured. Last year, he was one of the worst linebackers in the league, along with Eric Kendricks. They were 2 of the better coverage linebackers in the league. Eric Kendricks arguably the best between like his rookie year and 2021, you could say. And then 2022, they both just played really, really bad. Then during the offseason, when I first found out that the Vikings cut Eric Kendricks, but they re-signed Jordan Hicks, I was like, okay, you have 2 bad linebackers, and you keep the worst one? How does that make any sense? But then Jordan Hicks has a career renaissance. He's actually playing much better this year. And then, yeah, I was dumbfounded by that. Anyways, after the Vikings beat the Bears, the second game Kirk Cousins did not play well in, but we still won, ironically. The Vikings played against the 49ers, and this was like really one of those games where you're like, oh, every team has a chance to win, but the Vikings did not. They're not going to beat the 49ers. I think it was at home, but it was on Monday Night Football. So, and the 49ers were 7-point favorites. And then the Brian Flores defense just shut down the 49ers offense following the first play of the game. Kirk Cousins throws the pick on the slant route to Jordan Addison. Travarius Ward just steals it away from him. But then a few plays later, Christian McCaffrey fumbles the ball and the Vikings pick it up. And basically after that play, the Vikings had the momentum the rest of the game. Brian Flores' defense really slowed down the 49ers, holding them to just 17 points. And the offense did just enough to win by 5 points, even though Greg Joseph missed, I think, an extra point and a field goal that could have made it a better lead for us. Yes, Jake Moody missed a field goal early on, so if you want to count every single score the teams could have had, it could have been the Vikings 26 and the 49ers 20, but it was actually just 22-17 for the Vikings. And that was the first game that showed how good Kirk Cousins can be, because without Justin Jefferson, he elevated Jordan Addison, he elevated TJ Hawkinson, he elevated Brandon Powell, KJ Osborne, and elevated the entire offense to win the game, including I think it was like 7 plays before the half. Kirk Cousins just threw the go ball to Jordan Addison when he was covered closely by Charvarius Ward. And as I was watching it, I think everyone was watching it was thinking he was about to throw an interception, and then Jordan Addison steals the ball away and just runs for the touchdown. That was one play that made me think, yeah, Jordan Addison is gonna be a star in the league for years to come. He was so good. That was like his first breakout game. I think he had over 100 yards, and yeah, he had 2 touchdowns. The only 2 touchdowns of the game for the Vikings actually. Yeah, because we had the our first touchdown was Jordan Addison. Kirk Cousins threw it just over Dre Greenlaw for the touchdown, and then the second one was at the end of the half, and it was that made it a 17-6 game, I think. And no, 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 it was 16-7 because the Vikings missed the extra point that at after that play, which again is just more proof that maybe the Vikings may need to look for a new kicker because just Greg Joseph is just too inconsistent to be the franchise kicker. You can't have a franchise kicker who you can't even trust to make a PAT. If you can't make a PAT 19 times out of 20, you can't be a franchise kicker. If you can't make a field goal within 50 yards 80% of the time, you can't be a franchise kicker. And this is exactly what Greg Joseph can't do. He's just way too inconsistent. But the Vikings have given him like no. They've given him no competition since 20. I think it was 2021. I think we had Dan Bailey up until 2020, and then we had Greg Joseph in 2021. Can't really remember, but yeah, Greg Joseph last year was really automatic within 50 yards, but beyond 50 yards, he only had 2 makes. I think the entire season, he had like a 54-yard against the Packers and then the 61-yard against the Giants. But apart from that, he could not make a thing above 50 yards, but he made everything below 50 yards, except for PATs, which again he struggled a lot on last year. So the Vikings need to get a new kicker to at least give Greg Joseph some competition, either to make Greg Joseph better, and he realizes, oh, I actually need to be good to be the kicker, and he starts to be good, or he's like, yeah, I can't be it, and we just get a new kicker. That's more likely what it needs to be. Kind of same with Ryan Wright, because Ryan Wright has also just been bad this year. He was the best punter in the league last year. I think he had the most punts inside the 20 with like one touchback the entire year. And then this year, his average is like 30 yards per punt. That's an exaggeration. His average is more, but Ryan Wright has also just not been good, even though he was the best punter last year, and alongside Andrew DePola, the best long snapper in the league last year. After the 49ers game, the Vikings played the Packers, and a big storyline leading up to the game, even though the game was at Lambeau Field, so the Packers were favorites. A big storyline was how bad Jordan Love is against blitz, and Brian Flores is the most aggressive defensive coach in the league. He blitzes more than any other coach, and that's pretty obvious because I think the blitz rate is like 45%, which is the highest in the league. And that's exactly what the Vikings didn't have last year, what we needed, because the Vikings defense was just Ed Donatello's defense was just too cushiony last year, and without a good pass rush, defense were just able to dot them up. And now that we have Brian Flores to bring the heat every play, we can actually get sacks now. And against the Packers, the Jordan Love, he threw an interception to Josh Metellus, which was Josh Metellus' first interception of his career, and I think that led to the Vikings. I think that led to the Vikings' first rushing touchdown of the season to Cam Akers, and that's we went up 10-0, and then Packers kicked one field goal at the end of the half. They first missed the field goal, but one of the Vikings players was offside, so they get another chance and they made the field goal. But then to open the second half, first we scored a touchdown, and then we did what the Vikings did a few times last year, putting Jordan Addison in the backfield to confuse the defense. Jordan Addison literally just went on a go route, guarded by Jair Alexander, and Jair Alexander couldn't even guard him. He just ran right past him, caught the ball for the touchdown. We went 24-3, and then the Packers had the touchdown. The game ended 24-10, and it was something I think during the third quarter when Kirk Cousins had the drop back, no contact, and he tore his Achilles, sent him out for the season. That's when Jaron Hall came in. I think he went 3 for 4 for 22 yards, but he also got stripped by Preston Smith, and and after that, some Vikings fans were like, "Oh, Jaron Hall maybe isn't it," but I wanted to have faith in him until the next game against the Falcons. He, I think our first offensive drive went nowhere, but then the second drive we went down to almost to the end zone, and then Jaron Hall got a concussion, which put him out for I think like 3 weeks or something, and he eventually cleared it He eventually cleared it before the Bears game, but we still haven't played him because even till then he was the emergency third quarterback because of the Brock Purdy rule. Teams can have three quarterbacks, but the third is only the emergency quarterback in case the two quarterbacks just get injured. The third quarterback can't play. And when the Vikings were gonna play the Falcons, and there were a lot of question marks about what quarterback we'd play. A lot of Vikings fans didn't want Jaron Hall to play because like, oh no, we're just giving up on the season, and signed. That's why we traded for Josh Dobbs at the trade deadline to give us at least some quarterback depth, which ended up being a good idea for 2 games. Because the first half, our offense again was just dormant. I think we what was it? I think we ended the half. We were down like 9 to it was like 10-9 or something. Because Josh Dobbs got sacked for like one safety, and the Falcons had a 1 point lead. But then the second half, we were down at 1 point. No, it was 11-10 at the half. I'm barely remembering this. The Panthers like got 2 touchdowns. The Vikings had a field goal, 21-13. Josh Dobbs ran in for a touchdown. And then he threw the 2 point conversion to Tristan Jackson, the Vikings like sixth receiver, and he caught it for the 2 point conversion to tie the game. The Falcons then kick a field goal to take the lead, and then Josh Dobbs. I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly. Wait, no. The Vikings kicked the field goal, but then the Falcons again just ran for a touchdown because the Falcons just tired out our defense by running down the ball with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, mostly Tyler Algier. They took the lead 28-24, and then the last drive was the drive when Josh Dobbs took the Vikings 75 yards down the field, including like the 30-yard throw to Jordan Addison on the sideline, which all Vikings fans remember. That was pretty reminiscent of what Chris Carter was. Just just a sideline threat who could catch every ball on the sideline. Even as he got hit, he still got his feet down and held control of the ball. And then the Vikings had 4th and 7. Right there, I was like, the game is over, isn't it? And as Josh Dobbs is about to get sacked, he escapes, and I filmed the end of the Falcons game, which now has over 6,000 views, my most viewed YouTube video, even more than the Vikings and Lions end of the season game in 2021, but that's besides the point. And he escapes from the sack, runs for the first down, and gives the Vikings a new set of downs. And then eventually on 3rd and 4, he throws the ball to Brandon Powell, the Vikings' 4th receiver, behind Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, and then it's Brandon Powell. I think number 5 or 6 is Jalen Naylor or Tristan Jackson. That gave the Vikings the 31-28 lead, and then the Falcons just had the Hail Mary, which got knocked down. The Vikings won the game. And going to the Saints game, that was when after Josh Dobbs had no first team reps, no practices with the first team because the Vikings were trying to prepare Jaron Hall to start, and then he got the concussion. So Josh Dobbs didn't even know any of the play calls, and even during the huddle, Kevin O'Connell would still be like changing the play for Josh Dobbs, which could only confuse him more. And Josh Dobbs still immediately got into the offense like he had been there for a year, and he gave the Vikings like the mobile quarterback, improviser, archetype quarterback that the Vikings have, which had been kind of just convenient for the Vikings because we've had Kirk Cousins, who's a pocket passer, can't really escape pressure that well, and having Josh Dobbs as a mobile quarterback helped a lot. And going into the Saints game, when he actually had over a week to prepare for it in the Kevin O'Connell offense, the first half was as good as it could have been. Vikings go up 17-3 at the half, and then we score another touchdown and field goal. It was 27-3, and then at that point, Kevin O'Connell was like, okay, now let's just kneel the ball out. We're not gonna be aggressive on offense at all anymore. We're just gonna let the Saints come back and almost beat us again. And the Saints, I think Derek Carr got injured, and that's when Jameis Winston came in and almost came back and won the game. They scored the touchdown, went for two, scored touchdown, went for two again. Two two converted 2-point conversions in one game. That rarely happens. The the Vikings defense. I wasn't watching the game because I was coming back from South Dakota, so I was listening on the radio. But the Vikings really allowed two-point conversions in one game, and it was back to back. Normally when teams go for two-point conversions twice, they make one. Maybe neither of them. The Saints got both of them. They would have needed to get three consecutive 2-point conversions, and they probably would have gotten all three of them, to be honest. But then Brian Flores' defense finally clutched up, and when we were up 27-19, first of all, the Mekhi Blackman lineup against Chris Olave got the interception that kept the game in for the Vikings, and then it was the last play, the Hail Mary, when it was just incomplete, and the Vikings won the game. And listening on the radio, I listened on the radio and followed in the Vikings app so I could see the score at the time, what down it was. And I was, at first, when the Vikings were up by so much, I was like, yeah, I can feel pretty comfortable about this. And then after 2 touchdowns, I was like, the Vikings are going to lose this game, aren't they? But we didn't, thank goodness. It was almost too reminiscent of the Rams versus Bucks game. Rams versus Buccaneers, NFC. What was it? NFC divisional round, I think, or I think it was the divisional round when the Rams were playing the Buccaneers. They were up 27-3. Then Tom Brady came back. They were up 27-27, and then Cooper Kupp dusted Antoine Winfield, blew the coverage, and they eventually went off the field goal, which they did eventually go on to win the Super Bowl. Kind of reminiscent of that game. If you remember that, you probably don't, because the Rams sucked last year immediately following that Super Bowl. After this, the Saints game, the Vikings played. Who is it? I'm blanking on it right now. The Vikings, we beat the 49ers. No, we beat the Bears, beat the 49ers, beat the Packers, then we beat the Falcons and the Saints. That was a 5-game win streak. Immediately after that, Kevin O'Connell's offense started playing a lot less aggressive. Actually, like Pro for the Win mentioned, first of all, we were playing on house money. We had no business being in the playoffs after the 5-game win streak, and we were, because the Vikings were playing like we had nothing to lose. That's when Kirk Cousins was playing like an MVP. He was just slinging the ball to T.J. Hawkinson, to Jordan Addison, to K.J. Osborne, keeping the Vikings in the running, eventually in the playoffs. We got into the 7th seed, and then when the Vikings were about to play the Broncos, I think that was like the first week when we could have been put into the 6th seed. And then again against the Bears, we could have been in the 6th seed, but we lost both of those games. Because even though the defense played so good both of those games, we allowed 5 field goals to the Broncos offense, and then 4 to the Bears offense. And then it was against the Broncos. The defense just allowed 1 touchdown at the end of the game when the offense already couldn't do anything, so we had to rely on our defense to make the play, which you shouldn't need to do. Obviously, the 2015 Broncos are an outlier. They have the best defense in the league, and the offense just barely hung along, and they won the Super Bowl. The Vikings offense did nothing all game long. We scored 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals. It was 20-15, and then again, we needed. I like how the For the Win calls it. If you need a Herculean effort from your defense to win the game, it's your offense fault for losing. It was 20-15. The Vikings, obviously the turnovers have been a problem for us all season long. Even during the 5-game losing streak, we still had some turnovers. And then Josh Dobbs, I can't remember what it was, but we still had a few turnovers against the Broncos, which blew the game for us. We had the lead 20-15. But for how good our defense was playing, you'd expect our offense to play at least a little bit better, and we still lost the game 21-15. The Broncos went for two, failed, and then the offense just couldn't get it going because Josh Dobbs. It seemed like the against the Broncos and the Bears, Josh Dobbs started playing more like a pocket passer instead of as a dual threat improviser quarterback like he had been for the Falcons and the Saints game. And he even was against the Broncos. Like for one touchdown when he threw to Josh Oliver, he escaped the pressure, even got away from a sack, and then threw to Josh Oliver for a touchdown. And it was looking like, oh my gosh, Josh Dobbs can do anything. And then as he tried to play more like a pocket passer, Kevin O'Connell has just not put up the plays that Josh Dobbs does to thrive in, which can include like RPOs, read option plays. No, it's just be a pocket passer, and Josh Dobbs isn't that. He's an improviser quarterback. He can scramble, and the Vikings weren't using his strength again. He they weren't using his strength for any good. It was just be a pocket passer, and he can't do that, especially when the Vikings offensive line has struggled the last three games. And against the Broncos, that's what led for the first of all. Josh Dobbs had the he had the intentional grounding, which he could have been just down because as he was trying to release the ball, he was holding on for too long already. He released the ball as his knee was about to hit the ground. He just released it, called for intentional grounding. Vikings had 4th and 20, lost the game. And then against the Bears again, the Vikings had Josh Dobbs threw 4 interceptions. One was really on him. He just threw it too high up, and Jalen Johnson was able to undercut it and get the interception. 3 of them were just tipped off the receivers, so that's not really on him, but still, he was just not making the right decision, not putting the ball in the right places, and threw 4 interceptions, which somehow the defense, the Bears only got one field goal off of all those turnovers, and that was when it was that's how it was 12-10 at the end of the game. After it was 10-9 late in the game, and then that was when Justin Fields had the long pass to DJ Moore, which led them to kicking the field goal, and then the Vikings just couldn't come back to win it. Again, just when the Vikings the offense wasting an incredible defensive performance because the offense couldn't do anything. And that's when you lose games. When your offense can't do anything, when your defense is making all the plays, keeping the opponent short, and the Vikings offense couldn't do anything, and we lost those games, unsurprisingly. And against the Raiders, it was looking very similar because it was 0-0 until the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. It seemed like a mixture of both offenses being terrible and both defenses being really good. Max Crosby put pressure on I almost said Kirk Cousins. On Josh Dobbs and later Nick Mullins every single play. Even he was held by Brian O'Neill and still got a sack on Josh Dobbs because he was just like wreaking havoc as a one-man show on the defensive line. Both offenses couldn't do anything all game. Both defenses were just shutting them down. And then we eventually benched Josh Dobbs because it was kind of already too late by then. Josh Dobbs had played just bad the last 3 games against the Broncos, against the Bears, and against the Raiders by that point. And eventually we just put in Nick Mullins, who is a pocket passer, but he knew the offense better. And his first play of the game, he throws the ball, I think it was like 26 yards, tipped by the Raiders defender into the hands of TJ Hawkinson. At the end of the game, I showed the 2 stat lines. Josh Dobbs was 10 for 23 for 63 yards and an interception. Nick Mullins was 9 for 13 for 83 yards, and he led the Vikings to the field goal, which won the game. Technically, Greg Joseph, you could think Greg Joseph in like the first quarter when he missed the field goal, he already missed the game-winning kick then because that would have won the game eventually. But then he made the kick at the end. It was a 49er kick he missed, and then a 46-yard kick he made that gave the Vikings the lead. And then the last play for the Raiders, when they just had to run the Hail Mary, the Vikings rushed 2 to the quarterback. Obviously, didn't get any pressure. He threw to Devontae Adams. As I was watching, Devontae Adams ran like 20 yards downfield. I was starting to think Devontae Adams was gonna win the game for them, and we were gonna lose that way. But then he got chased, but got into three of Vikings defend. He ran into area with three Vikings defenders, and it looked like he was trying to lose balance. He pitched it back to an offensive lineman and then they eventually got knocked down, got tackled, and the Vikings won the game. But that was already felt too close by that point, and the Vikings won 3-0. Somehow we won because our defense shut the Raiders down, literal shutout, 3-0. And our offense couldn't do anything until the last 2 minutes when Greg Joseph kicked a field goal to win the game. It was the most boring excitement ever. And immediately following that field goal, the Raiders go back on offense, and Aiden O'Connell throws the interception to Ivan Pace, who eventually won the NFC Defensive Player of the Week because he deserved it. He got, I think, a sack and an interception. And I don't know. He had a huge game. He had 8 tackles in the first quarter alone. Ivan Pace just had a huge game. He's been an elite rookie, being undrafted. He's just being basically a do-it-all linebacker. He can rush the passer. He can play coverage as an off-ball linebacker. He can do everything. It's kind of like Eric Kendricks back in 2015. Like he's just been a rising star linebacker.